Let's learn how to get a list of transactions that involve a specific address in just 3 minutes. When it comes to on-chain data retrieval, typically most applications leverage RPCs as their primary way to connect with the blockchain, and rightfully so. RPCs serve as the foundation of virtually every decentralized application on the market. They use them as an Ethernet cord of sorts to read and write data from the blockchain, whether it's getting information about a block, pushing a transaction, or just reading the most recent block number. Virtually every basic data task can be achieved solely with RPC nodes. But RPCs aren't a silver bullet. They're limited. When it comes to problems like getting, like I mentioned, a list of transactions that involve a specific address, getting all the tokens owned by a specific address, RPCs very quickly show their limitations. This is where third-party data API providers like Covalent come in with various endpoints that are designed specifically to solve these sort of holes and limitations within typical RPC nodes. So with that in mind, following the recent native Covalent integration within the Chainstack marketplace, let's leverage the Chainstack Covalent integration and its associated SDK to query a list of transactions that involves a specific address in just 3 minutes. Okay, so let's get started. Head over to your console and install the Chainstack Covalent SDK with the following command: npm install chainstack-covalent-sdk. Now, before we continue, we're going to want to head over to Chainstack and grab our Covalent API key. So we can do that by first heading over to our Chainstack console, going over to Marketplace, heading over to Covalent. As you can see, I already have it installed. If you don't have it installed, you can go ahead and click on the install button and then go through the process of getting it onto your account. You can open it up here. You can see I have a few API keys. I want to create a new key. I can name it just default and copy it here. So let's go ahead and import the package itself into our code. We can do this by creating a constant Chainstack API. We'll just go ahead and import the package itself here. Okay, so now that's imported, let's go ahead and create our sort of master variable for the package in which we'll go ahead and insert that API key that we just created. We'll create another constant. In this case, I'm just going to name this Chainstack. And we can set this to a new instance of Chainstack API and then insert our API key. And here we paste that in. And there we go. All right, so now we're ready to go and ready to use the SDK. We've gone ahead and imported it. And we defined our constant Chainstack with an instance of Chainstack API initiated with our Chainstack API key. So now we'll want to go ahead and define the parameters for the call that we'll be making in a second. For me, I usually prefer to do this in its own constant. So let's go ahead and do that by creating a constant for the parameters of our method call. We'll name this paginated transaction params. We'll open up some brackets here and fill in a few of our key parameters. In this case, we'll want chain name. I'm going to be doing this on Sepolia, so I'll do eth-Sepolia. We can also do our wallet address. We'll also want to do our page. Like the variable name suggests, this is a paginated method, which means that it returns based on the page of results. So if you have 1,000 transactions, it'll sort these into multiple pages that you can go ahead and query individually. For now, let's just set this as page 0. Let's also go ahead and open up an asynchronous function. This is what we're going to be using to call the method itself. And we can just name this get transactions. And we can go ahead and create another constant. This constant will hold the result of the call itself. We'll set this to await Chainstack, which is of course a variable that we defined up here. And then we'll call the get paginated transactions for address method here. We can throw in our parameters, which will be paginated transaction params, and then we can just simply log the result. Now let's call the function itself. So now we've imported the package, the npm package that we previously installed in our shell, defined the Chainstack variable, which includes our Chainstack platform API key that we got previously, created a variable that contains the parameters for the method that we called, created a function called getTransactions that just very simply calls the getPaginated transactions for address method on the Chainstack object. And then we call that function here, and we can go ahead and run it. So as you can see here, we have some basic data to start. We have the address, when this data was updated, the next time that it'll be updated, the quote currency. This is another parameter that you can actually set if you want. If you want to change it to euros or whatever, then you can do that. By default, it just goes to USD. The chain ID, this is Sepolia. The chain name, the current page, this is the parameter that we defined here, 0. And then of course we have our items. So this is a list of objects. Each of these objects represent a transaction on the list. So okay, well, we have this data. This is pretty basic data, just kind of like from top down. So how do we get access to the items? How do we get access to the actual transactions themselves? Well, in that case, what we can do is actually change the log to be .data.items. Now you'll see we have a much longer list of results. We have every transaction that this address has been involved with, including the transactions sent to it and the transactions that it sent out. So of course, remember, this is only one page, page 0. If you have more transactions that you're querying, you'll have to increment through multiple pages. If you'd like to learn more about the SDK itself that we created for the Covalent Chainstack integration, you can take a look at the link to the thread below. If you'd also like to learn more about Covalent, you can also take a look at our marketplace listing for Covalent linked below this video.